The research station orbited a dying red dwarf, far enough from Earth that supply ships only came twice a year. Dr. Maya Chun had volunteered for the isolation. 3 years studying cosmic radiation patterns, 3 years of blessed silence from the academic politics that had driven her from the university. She preferred stars to people. Stars were predictable. They followed rules. They didn't mock you for bringing a retainer case to faculty meetings or wearing the same hoodie 5 days straight. The station was small, designed for a crew of 8, but currently housing only 5. Maya had her lab, her telescope array, and her collection of dental care products that would have embarrassed most people. She wasn't embarrassed. Oral hygiene was important, and the fact that her colleagues found her extensive flossing routine strange said more about them than her. She was cataloging gamma-ray bursts when the proximity alarm screamed. Maya's coffee mug jumped, splashing lukewarm liquid across her keyboard. She swore, grabbing tissues to dab at the equipment while her other hand stabbed at the comm button. "Chin here. What's the alert?" Commander Rodriguez's voice crackled through, tense and professional. "Unknown vessel. Big one. It just dropped out of FTL 300 kilometers off her starboard side. Chun, get to the observation deck. Bring your cameras." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. In 3 years, they'd seen nothing but automated cargo haulers and the occasional research drone. The nearest inhabited system was 40 light years away. She grabbed her camera rig, fingers trembling as she locked the straps across her chest. The hallway outside her lab was already filled with the thunder of boots as the rest of the crew converged on the observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, the ship hung in space like a sleeping predator. It was massive, easily 50 times the size of their station. The hull was dark, catching starlight in strange ways that made Maya's eyes hurt. Organic curves blended with geometric precision and patterns that seemed almost familiar, as if someone had taken architecture from a dozen different species and welded them together with no regard for aesthetic consistency. "That's not human," breathed Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their xenobiologist. Her face was pressed against the glass like a child at an aquarium. "Obviously," muttered Rodriguez. He was already on the comm, trying every frequency in their database. "Unidentified vessel. This is Research Station Kepler. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." "Static." Maya raised her camera, adjusting the lens to capture the ship's details. As she zoomed in, she noticed something odd about the hull plating. There were marks, deep gouges, and burn scars that spoke of combat. Recent combat, judging by the way the metal still seemed to shimmer at the edges of the wounds. "They're hailing us," said Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the comm station. "Audio only. The translation matrix is going crazy trying to process it." "Put it through," Rodriguez ordered. The sound that filled the observation deck was like nothing Maya had ever heard. It was deep, resonant, with harmonics that seemed to bypass her ears entirely and vibrate directly in her chest cavity. The translation software stuttered, spitting out fragments. "Sanctuary, pursuit, damage need." Then the audio cut out entirely, replaced by a sound that made everyone in the room flinch. It was a roar, primal and filled with pain, followed by what could only be described as whimpering. "They're hurt," Maya said, surprising herself with how quickly the words came out. Rodriguez glanced at her. "We don't know what they are. Could be a trick. Could be someone who needs help," Maya countered. She wasn't usually the one to argue with the commander, but something about that sound had bypassed her usual social anxiety entirely. It was the same instinct that made her rescue injured birds as a kid, that had her staying up all night, nursing a stray cat back to health despite her mother's protests. Yuki was nodding. "We have to at least communicate. This is first contact, Commander. The protocols are clear." Rodriguez's jaw worked as he considered. Finally, he nodded. "Webb, send a response. Tell them we're a research station with limited medical facilities, but we'll help if we can. Ask them what they need." The wait was excruciating. Maya found herself holding her breath, camera forgotten in her hands. Through the window, the massive ship hung motionless, its damaged hull catching the red light of the distant star. When the response came, the translation was clearer. The software had apparently figured out the basics of the language. The voice was still deep, still resonant, but now Maya could make out actual words. Medical assistance. One injured. Permission to dock. Rodriguez looked around at his crew. They were scientists, not military. The station had no weapons, no defenses beyond the basic meteor shields. If this was hostile, they were already dead. Might as well die doing something interesting. Permission granted. Bay 3. Approached slowly. Maya watched through the observation deck windows as the massive ship maneuvered with surprising grace. As it drew closer, she could make out more details. The hull wasn't just scarred from weapons fire. There were what looked like claw marks, massive gouges that had torn through armor plating like paper. Whatever had attacked this ship had been both powerful and savage. The docking procedure took 20 minutes. The station shuddered as the magnetic clamps engaged, and Maya heard the groan of stressed metal. The ship was heavy, much heavier than the bay was designed to handle. "Everyone suit up," Rodriguez ordered. "We don't know what their atmosphere requirements are." Maya hurried to the locker room, struggling into her EVA suit with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. This was it. First contact. Humanity's first confirmed interaction with intelligent alien life. And it was happening in a nowhere research station with a crew of 5. The historians were going to be so annoyed that they'd missed it. By the time she reached Bay 3, the others were already assembled. Rodriguez had his sidearm, though everyone knew it was more for show than anything else. Yuki had her scanner array, eager to collect any biological data. The other 2 crew members, engineers Paulo Santos and Dmitry Volkov, stood ready with emergency medical supplies. The airlock light turned green. The inner door hissed open. Maya's first thought was that their sensors had malfunctioned. Surely nothing biological could be that large. The creature that emerged from the airlock had a duct to fit through the doorway, and even then, its shoulders scraped against the frame. It stood on 2 powerful legs, its body covered in scales that shimmered between deep purple and midnight black. 2 massive wings were folded against its back, tattered and torn in places. Its arms were thick with muscle, ending in clawed hands that looked capable of tearing through steel. But it was the head that made Maya's breath catch. Elongated, reptilian, with 2 curved horns sweeping back from a skull. The face was surprisingly expressive, with large eyes that held an intelligence that was immediately apparent. Those eyes were a brilliant amber color, currently dimmed with what was clearly pain. The dragon, because what else could she call it, was cradling something against its chest. As it stepped fully into the bay, Maya saw that it was carrying another creature. Smaller, maybe only 3 meters tall, with similar features but scales that were a lighter shade of blue-gray. The smaller dragon's breathing was labored, and there was a dark fluid, presumably blood, seeping from a wound in its side. "Please," the larger dragon said, and the translation was perfect now. The voice was male, deep, and rumbling. "My nestmate, the wound festers. Your station's medical signature suggested sophisticated biological facilities. I had no other options." Yuki stepped forward, scanner extended. "May I?" The dragon's eyes fixed on her, and for a moment Maya saw the predator lurking beneath the desperation. Then he nodded, a gesture that was apparently universal, and carefully lowered himself to his knees to make the injured dragon more accessible. Yuki's scanner beeped frantically as she passed it over the wound. Her expression grew concerned. "The injury has become infected. Badly. There's necrotic tissue and... Commander, we need to get them to the medical bay immediately." "Will your facilities accommodate?" the dragon asked, glancing around the bay with obvious doubt. Everything on the station was human-sized, designed for creatures that massed maybe 100 kilograms at most. He probably weighed several tons. "We'll make it work," Maya heard herself say. Everyone turned to look at her, and she felt her face flush. "What? We have to try." The dragon's amber eyes focused on her, and Maya felt like she was being truly seen for the first time in years. There was gratitude there, and something else. Recognition, maybe, as if he understood something about her that even she didn't fully grasp. Thank you, he said quietly. I am DragonThe the Scarnock Pride. This is my clutch sibling, Melanthayar. Dr. Maya Chun, she responded automatically. Astrophysicist. Though I guess right now I'm more of a first contact specialist. Was that humor flickering in those alien eyes? Hard to tell. The journey to the medical bay was complicated by the sheer size of their patients. DragonThe had to crawl through the corridors, his wings scraping against the ceiling. He never once complained, though Maya could see the strain in every movement. He was exhausted, probably had been pushing himself past all reasonable limits to get his sibling to safety. The medical bay was barely large enough. They had to move out 2 examination tables just to create floor space for Melanthayar. DragonThe laid his sibling down with a gentleness that seemed at odds with his fearsome appearance, then reluctantly moved back to give the humans room to work. Paolo and Dimitri immediately set up scanning equipment while Yuki began analyzing the wound. Maya stood awkwardly to the side, unsure of her role. She was an astrophysicist, not a doctor. She studied stars, not biology. But she found she couldn't leave. Those amber eyes kept finding her across the room, as if DragonThe needed the reassurance of her presence. The infection is chemical as well as biological, Yuki announced, her voice tight. Some kind of venom, I think. It's breaking down tissue faster than the body can heal. Maya, I need you to help me identify the compounds. Your background in spectroscopy might be useful. Useful, right? Maya could do useful. She moved to Yuki's side, pulling up the chemical analysis on her tablet. The compounds were complex, nothing in Earth's database. But the patterns were familiar. Carbon chains, protein structures, amino acids. Different than Earth life, but built on similar principles. This part here, she said, highlighting a molecular structure. It's similar to cadmium compounds. Highly toxic to most biological systems. And this one looks like it might be enzymatic, breaking down cellular walls. Can you synthesize a counteragent? DragonThe asked from across the room. His voice was steady, but Maya could hear the fear underneath. Maybe, Yuki said slowly, but I need time, and I need to understand your biology better. DragonThe, would you consent to giving us a biological sample? Blood, preferably, so we can test any treatment before we try it on Melanthayar. The dragon extended his arm without hesitation. The scales parted smoothly, revealing skin underneath that was surprisingly soft-looking. Paolo approached with a needle, then paused, realizing it was far too small. Wait, Maya said. She hurried to the storage locker, digging through supplies until she found what she needed. We use these for taking core samples from ice formations. Should work. The sampling tool was essentially a large bore needle, designed to extract cylinders of material. DragonThe didn't even flinch as Paolo pressed it against his arm and triggered the mechanism. Dark purple blood filled the collection chamber, far more viscous than human blood. As they worked, Maya found herself studying DragonThe. Not just his physical form, impressive as that was, but the small details. The way his claws tapped against the floor in a nervous rhythm. How his wings twitched whenever Melanthayar made sound. The careful way he held himself, trying to take up less space in the cramped medical bay. He was scared, she realized. Terrified, but he was holding it together through sheer force of will. She understood that feeling, the need to maintain control, to not let others see the panic underneath. Without thinking, Maya crossed the room to stand near DragonThe. He glanced down at her, surprise flickering across his reptilian features. Your sibling will be okay, Maya said softly. Yuki is the best xenobiologist in the sector. If anyone can figure this out, it's her. You don't know that, DragonThe replied. You can't promise that. No, Maya admitted. But I can promise we'll do everything possible. That counts for something. DragonThe was quiet for a long moment. Then, carefully, he lowered himself to the floor, sitting in a position that brought his head closer to Maya's level. You are different from the others, he said. They look at me and see a monster to be studied or feared. You look at me and see what? Maya considered the question seriously. Someone who's scared and try not to show it. Someone who'd cross half a galaxy to save someone they love. Someone who's in pain, but won't admit it because there are more important things to worry about. The dragon's amber eyes widened slightly. How did you? I'm good at observing, Maya said with a small smile. Comes with the job. Also, you favor your left side, and your wings are shaking. When did you last sleep? Before the attack. 3 standard cycles ago. And when did you last eat? DragonThe didn't answer, which was answer enough. Maya turned to Paolo. Can you check if we have anything in storage that might be compatible with his biology? High protein, high calorie. If not, we might need to fabricate something. I don't need, DragonThe began. Yeah, you do, Maya interrupted, surprising herself with her directness. You're no good to your sibling if you collapse from exhaustion. Besides, the medical team needs time to work. You'll just be in the way if you hover. For a moment, she thought she'd overstepped. The dragon's eyes narrowed, and she caught a glimpse of the predator again. Then, incredibly, he laughed. It was a strange sound, like distant thunder mixed with the purr of some great cat. You are very small to be so bossy, he observed. I've been told that before, Maya said dryly. She pulled up a chair, positioning it next to where DragonThe sat. So, want to tell me what happened? Who attacked you? The laughter faded from DragonThe's eyes. Corvolux, a rogue fleet. They've been raiding border systems for cycles, taking what they want, destroying what they can't use. Our ship was transporting medical supplies when they ambushed us. The others, they didn't survive. I'm sorry, Maya said quietly. Melanthair only lived because of chance. A bulkhead collapsed, and they thought we were both dead. When I dug us out, the Corvalix were gone, but Melanthair was... He trailed off, looking at where his sibling lay on the medical bay floor. Hey, Maya waited until DragonThe looked at her. You got them here. That took incredible skill and determination. Most beings would have given up. Skarnak do not give up, DragonThe said, but there was no arrogance in it. Just simple fact. We protect our own. Always. As Maya sat with the massive alien dragon in the cramped medical bay, watching Yuki and the others work frantically to save a life, she had the strange feeling that her isolated, predictable life had just become very complicated. And, even stranger, she wasn't entirely sure she minded. 12 hours into the medical crisis, Maya discovered that DragonThe snored. It was a deep, rumbling sound that made the medical equipment vibrate slightly. He'd finally passed out from exhaustion around hour 8, slumped against the wall with his wings draped across his knees. Every few minutes, he'd jerk awake, eyes wild with panic until he saw Melanthair still breathing on the medical bay floor. Then, he'd drift off again. Maya had stayed the entire time. She told herself it was just scientific curiosity, the chance to observe a completely unknown species. She didn't examine too closely why she'd dragged in blankets from her quarters, or why she'd positioned herself between DragonThe and the door, as if her tiny frame could somehow protect this massive creature from whatever threats he was dreaming about. Yuki stumbled over to Maya's position, her eyes red-rimmed with fatigue. She held 2 cups of coffee that had long since gone cold. I think we have it, Yuki said quietly, not wanting to wake DragonThe. The counter-agent should neutralize the venom and allow their natural healing to take over. But, Maya, I need you to understand, this is completely experimental. We're basing everything on biological samples from one individual and comparing it to an injured person. The margin for error is enormous. Maya glanced at Melanthair. The smaller dragon's breathing had grown more labored over the past few hours. The wound, despite their attempts to clean and treat it, seemed to be spreading. Dark veins were visible beneath the blue-gray scales, branching out from the injury like a grotesque spiderweb. If you do nothing, they die? Maya asked. Almost certainly, within the next few hours. Then, we don't really have a choice, do we? Yuki nodded slowly. I wanted to wake DragonThe first. Get his consent. Before Maya could respond, DragonThe's eyes snapped open. He was on his feet instantly, moving with a speed that seemed impossible for something so large. His eyes found Melanthair first, then locked onto Yuki. I heard, he said, his deep voice rough with sleep. Do it. Whatever the risk, It's better than watching them fade. There could be side effects we haven't predicted, Yuki warned. Pain, seizures, organ failure. Do it, DragonThe repeated. Please. The procedure took another hour. Maya watched as Yuki and Paolo carefully administered the counteragent, injecting it directly into the tissue surrounding the wound. Melanthaor twitched, making a sound that was heartbreakingly similar to a human child crying. DragonThe moved forward instantly, but Yuki held up a hand. Give it time. The agent needs to spread through their system. If you interfere now, you could do more harm than good. For someone who had crossed half the galaxy, who had survived an attack that killed his entire crew, who commanded a ship the size of a small station, DragonThe looked helpless. His claws flexed, scraping against the metal floor. His tail, which Maya hadn't really noticed before, lashed back and forth in agitation. Maya found herself moving to his side again. Hey, come here. She gestured to the corner where he'd been sleeping. You standing over them like that isn't helping anyone. Seat. Breathe. Let the medicine work. I should be there, DragonThe protested, but he let Maya guide him back to the wall. Yuki will call us the second anything changes. Right now, you need to trust her to do her job. Maya settled back in her own spot, pulling out her tablet. Here, want to see something cool? DragonThe looked at her like she'd grown a second head. Cool. Yeah, I'm an astrophysicist, remember? I study space. And you traveled through it to get here. So tell me, what does FTL travel look like from inside the ship? I've always wondered. It was a transparent distraction technique, and they both knew it. But after a moment, DragonThe's expression softened slightly. He settled against the wall, his large form folding with surprising grace. It's different every time, he said slowly. The Skarnak use quantum tunneling drives. You create a fold in space-time, step through, and emerge somewhere else. During the transition, you can see everything and nothing, all possibilities at once. Maya's scientific interest was genuinely piqued now. Everything at once? How does your brain process that? It doesn't really. Most species experience some degree of temporal disorientation during FTL travel. The Skarnak are lucky. Our neural structure is distributed across multiple centers. We can compartmentalize the experience better than most. Multiple neural centers? So you have more than one brain? 3 primary nodes, DragonThe confirmed. 1 in the skull, 1 in the chest cavity, 1 at the base of the spine. They're linked, but they can also function independently in emergencies. It's an evolutionary adaptation from when our ancestors were prey animals. You can't kill us by destroying just the head. Maya's fingers flew across her tablet, taking notes. That's incredible. So when you think, is it a collaborative process between the 3, or does one dominate? The head node handles immediate sensory input and rapid decision-making. The chest node processes emotions and social bonds. The spine node manages autonomic functions and instinct. The HFY powers it, considering. When we make important decisions, all 3 must agree. It's why Skarnak rarely act impulsively. We quite literally have to convince ourselves. Except when your sibling is dying, Maya observed softly. DragonThe's expression darkened. Except then, when the chest node screams loudly enough, the others fall silent. They sat in companionable silence for a while. Maya continued making notes, genuinely fascinated by the glimpse into alien biology. She was so focused that she almost missed the soft chirp from Yuki's monitoring equipment. Yuki's head snapped up, her eyes widening. The infection markers. They're dropping. Look at this, Paolo. The necrotic tissue is beginning to regenerate. DragonThe was on his feet before Maya could blink. He crossed the medical bay in 2 strides, dropping to his knees beside Melanthaor. Are you certain? The readings are clear. The counteragent is working. Yuki's voice was filled with cautious excitement. DragonThe, I think your sibling is going to make it. The sound that came from the massive dragon was unlike anything Maya had heard before. It started as a low rumble, building into something between a roar and a song. It resonated through the medical bay, through Maya's very bones. Joy, she realized. That was the sound of pure, unrestrained joy. Melanthear's eyes fluttered open. They were a lighter shade of amber than DragonThe's, almost golden. The smaller dragon's gaze was unfocused at first, then sharpened as they took in their surroundings. Veter. The voice was weak but unmistakable. Where? Safe, DragonThe said, his large hand resting gently on Melanthear's head. We're safe. You're going to be fine. These humans, they saved you. Melanthear's eyes found Maya, then Yuki, then the others. Humans. I thought humans were extinct, the records said. Clearly the records were wrong, DragonThe said with something that might have been amusement. He glanced at Maya. The Galactic database has humanity listed as a dead species, extinct for over 2,000 cycles. There was a note about primitive space stations left in their home system, but no active population. Maya felt her stomach drop. That's impossible. We have colonies on 6 worlds. There are over 50 billion humans in the Sol system alone. Your home system is Sol? Melanthear tried to sit up, winced, and settled for raising their head. The Lost Cradle? That's been quarantined for millennia. No one goes there. The jump point coordinates were deleted from all navigation databases. Quarantine. Commander Rodriguez had entered the medical bay at some point during the crisis. Now he stepped forward, his military training overriding his shock. By who? And why? Melanthear and DragonThe exchanged glances, one of those unspoken communications that transcended species. Finally, DragonThe spoke. The Conclave, the ruling body of the known galaxy. They declared Sol off-limits nearly 3,000 cycles ago, right after the Scream. The Scream? Maya echoed. No one knows exactly what happened, but every psychic species in the galaxy felt it simultaneously. A wave of pure terror and pain originating from your home system. Thousands died from the psychic backlash. Millions more went mad. When scout ships were sent to investigate, they found your world primitive and your people barely surviving in scattered tribes. The decision was made to seal the system. Let humanity evolve naturally without outside interference. Rodriguez's face had gone pale. 3,000 cycles. That's over 15,000 years, accounting for your longer year. But human civilization is only about 10,000 years old. And we never had psychic abilities. Maybe the Scream wasn't from humans, Yuki said slowly. Maybe something else was in your system. Something that attacked humanity and triggered the psychic wave when it did. Whatever it was, the Conclave decided the risk was too great. Sol was declared forbidden territory. Ships that violated the quarantine didn't return. DragonThe's expression was troubled. If the Galactic government learns there's an active human presence outside of Sol, if they know you've broken the quarantine, we didn't break anything, Maya protested. We just expanded naturally. We had no idea there was some galactic civilization out there. You're the first alien contact we've ever made. The first confirmed contact, Melanthear corrected weakly. But not the first presence you've encountered. Think, humans. Strange disappearances in your space. Ships that vanish without explanation. Phenomena your scientists can't explain. The Conclave has been watching, testing, trying to determine if whatever caused the Scream still influences your species. Maya thought about all the unsolved mysteries in human space exploration. The colony ship that disappeared between Mars and Jupiter. The research station that went silent and was found empty with no signs of violence or system failure. The strange signals that came from deep space, following mathematical patterns, but never repeating. She'd always assumed there were rational explanations. Now she wasn't so sure. So what happens now? She asked. You going to report us to this conclave? No. DragonThe's response was immediate and firm. Melanthear nodded agreement. You saved my clutch sibling's life when you had no obligation to do so. The debt of life is sacred to the Skarnak. We do not repay such debts with betrayal. Besides, Melanthear added, managing a weak smile that showed rows of sharp teeth, the galaxy could use a good shaking up. The Conclave has grown complacent. Discovering an entire, thriving human civilization might be exactly what's needed to challenge their assumptions. Rodriguez looked like he wanted to argue, to demand more answers, but Yuki interrupted. Commander, with respect, Melanthayar needs rest. We can debate galactic politics later. Right now, my patient needs to recover. The commander nodded reluctantly. Fine. But this conversation isn't over. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. As the others filed out of the medical bay, Maya lingered. She found herself drawn to these strange, dragon-like aliens. These Skarnak who had stumbled into humanity's isolation and brought news of an entire galaxy that didn't know humans still existed. DragonThe noticed her hesitation. You have questions. So many questions, Maya admitted. But the main one is, what are you going to do now? Your ship was damaged. Your crew is gone. You're stranded on a research station that barely has enough resources for its own personnel. I will repair my ship, DragonThe said simply. Once Melanthayar is strong enough to travel, we'll return to Skarnak space and report what happened with the Korvalix. After that, he paused, his amber eyes studying Maya thoughtfully. After that, perhaps I'll return. There's much I'd like to learn about humans, and much I think I could teach you about the galaxy beyond your borders. You do that, risk coming back here, knowing it could get you in trouble with your conclave. DragonThe's laugh was that same rumbling thunder purr. Dr. Chun, I have survived 3 major conflicts, 17 near-death experiences, and 1 very angry Korvalix fleet. I think I can handle a bureaucratic government that's afraid of ghosts from 15,000 years ago. Maya found herself smiling. You know what? I think you might actually be right. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. DragonThe, thank you for trusting us, for giving humanity a chance instead of just running. Thank you for seeing me as more than a monster, he replied softly. Not many would have done the same. As Maya made her way back to her quarters, exhausted but too wired to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything had just changed. Humanity wasn't alone. They'd never been alone. And now, whether the galaxy was ready or not, they were about to announce their presence in a very big way. She just hoped the galaxy would be ready for what happened when you poked a species that had survived in isolation for 15,000 years and told them they weren't supposed to exist. 3 days after the medical crisis, Maya found herself in Bay 3 staring at DragonThe's damaged ship with a growing realization that repair was going to be more complicated than anyone had anticipated. The vessel was in worse shape than initial scans had suggested. Entire sections of the hull had been breached, systems were offline, and there was what looked suspiciously like a fuel leak that made the engineers extremely nervous. This is going to take weeks, Paolo said, running his scanner across a particularly nasty gash in the ship's side. Maybe months. We don't have the materials for half of this. The alloys alone are nothing we've ever worked with. DragonThe, who had been carefully inventorying the damage alongside the human engineers, made a sound that might have been agreement. The Korvalix were thorough. They wanted to ensure no survivors could report their attack vector. His tail lashed in frustration. I was able to keep the quantum drive functional enough for 1 jump, but that depleted the reserves entirely. We'll need fuel before we can even think about a second attempt. What kind of fuel? Dmitri asked, already pulling up chemical databases on his tablet. Processed helium-3, suspended in a dark matter matrix with quantum stabilizers. The 2 engineers exchanged glances. Yeah, we definitely don't have that, Paolo said. We use fusion reactors with standard deuterium. Your fuel doesn't even exist in our database. Maya, who had been quietly observing from near the bay entrance, spoke up. The supply ship isn't due for another 3 months. Even if we could fabricate the materials you need, which seems unlikely, you'd be stuck here for a while. DragonThe's wings drooped slightly, a gesture of resignation that was becoming familiar to Maya. Then, it seems I have imposed on your hospitality longer than intended. I apologize for the burden. Don't apologize, Commander Rodriguez said as he entered the bay. You're not prisoners here, you're guests. Unexpected guests with a ship the size of a small moon, but guests nonetheless. He turned to his engineers. Paolo, Dmitri, make a complete assessment of what we need for repairs. Be creative. We're scientists, that's what we do. As the others dispersed to their tasks, Maya found herself walking alongside DragonThe as he headed back toward the habitation section. The dragon had a crouch to fit through most of the station's corridors, and she noticed he'd learned to angle his wings carefully to avoid scraping the walls. "This must be really uncomfortable for you," Maya observed. "Everything here is human-sized. You can barely move without hitting something." "I've been in worse situations," DragonThe replied. "There was a time I was trapped in a crash shuttle for 6 days. At least here, I can stretch occasionally." 6 days in a crash shuttle? What happened? "Training exercise gone wrong. I was young, overconfident, thought I could handle a difficult landing." The shuttle disagreed. He paused at an intersection, waiting for Maya to indicate which direction. "I had plenty of time to contemplate my mistakes while waiting for rescue." Maya led him toward the common area, a space they'd been gradually modifying to better accommodate their unexpected guests. The furniture had been rearranged, giving DragonThe and Melanthar room to actually exist without constant contortion. Someone had even brought in cushions and blankets, an attempt to make the hard metal floor more comfortable for creatures not designed for human furniture. Melanthar was already there, resting on a pile of cushions and looking significantly better than they had days ago. The wound was healing rapidly, the dark veins fading. Yuki sat nearby, still monitoring vitals with her ever-present scanner. "Your recovery is remarkable," Yuki was saying. "The rate of cellular regeneration is unlike anything I've seen. You should still be immobile, but you're already moving around." "Skana heal quickly," Melanthar explained. "It's another evolutionary adaptation. When you're a prey species that evolves into a predator, you need to bounce back fast from injuries." They noticed Maya and DragonThe entering and brightened visibly. "Veter and Dr. Chun. Good timing. Yuki was just explaining human medicine to me. Did you know humans used to drill holes in each other's heads to release evil spirits?" Maya couldn't help but laugh. Trepanation. "Yeah, we've come a long way since then." Mostly. DragonThe settled onto the floor near his sibling, his posture relaxing now that he was in the more open space. "Well, we still argue about whether vaccines cause problems, despite overwhelming evidence. And there's a disturbing trend of people taking livestock medication. So, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's both horrifying and oddly reassuring," Melanthar said. "The Conclave portrays themselves as superior to all other species, but we have our share of idiots who ignore science too." Over the next hour, the conversation drifted from medicine to culture to the vast differences between human and Skarnak society. Maya found herself fascinated by every detail. The Skarnak lived in clutches, extended family groups that functioned as both social unit and economic entity. They had no concept of individual property. Everything belonged to the clutch collectively. Their government was a meritocracy where leaders were chosen through a combination of combat prowess, intellectual achievement, and popular support. "Wait," Maya interrupted. "Combat prowess? So you literally fight for leadership positions?" "Not to the death," DragonThe clarified. "It's more like you're wrestling or boxing. Controlled combat that proves physical capability and tactical thinking. A leader who can't fight can't protect their clutch." "We have something similar," Rodriguez offered. He'd joined them at some point, along with the rest of the crew. The common area had become an impromptu cultural exchange, everyone eager to learn about their alien guests. Military leadership requires combat training, though we tend to focus more on strategy than personal fighting ability in modern times. "That explains why you're the commander despite being smaller than your engineers," Melanthar observed, studying Rodriguez thoughtfully. "I'm not that much smaller," Rodriguez protested, looking slightly offended. "You're at least 2 centimeters shorter than Paolo," Yuki pointed out helpfully. The conversation continued, ranging from the serious to the absurd. Maya learned that the Skarnak had over 40 distinct genders, that they could control their body temperature to survive in extreme environments, and that they found human music fascinating but completely baffling. "The rhythms make no sense," Melanthar complained when Dmitri played a sample of classical music. "There's no harmonic resonance. How do you even perceive it as pleasant? It's art, Maya said. It's not supposed to make logical sense. It's supposed to make you feel something. We have art, DragonThe said, but it's based on pheromone combinations and electromagnetic field manipulation. This, he gestured at the speaker playing Beethoven's Fifth. This is just noise organized in patterns. That's literally what all music is, Paolo laughed. Organized noise. The lighter mood was broken when Rodriguez's comm unit beeped urgently. His expression grew serious as he listened to the incoming message. When he looked up, his face was grim. We've detected ships approaching. 3 of them. Large ones. They'll be in communication range within the hour. DragonThe was on his feet instantly. Description? Energy signatures. Rodriguez transferred the data to the common area's main display. Maya felt her stomach sink as she saw the readouts. The ships were massive, easily dwarfing DragonThe's vessel. Their energy signatures were aggressive, weapons systems clearly visible even at distance. Corvallis, DragonThe said, his voice flat. They tracked us here. How? Is that possible? Yuki asked. You said you escaped them days ago. They must have tagged our ship during the attack. A quantum tracker, something I didn't detect in my initial damage assessment. DragonThe's claws extended involuntarily, scraping across the metal floor. I've brought death to your doorstep. I apologize, Commander Rodriguez. If I had known. Stop, Maya interrupted. Everyone turned to look at her, and she felt her face flush, but she pressed on. This isn't your fault. You were running for your life. And even if you had known, what were you supposed to do? Late Milint Adi? We don't blame you for seeking help. Dr. Chun is correct, Rodriguez said, though his tone was troubled. But we need to be realistic about our situation. This is a research station. We have no weapons, minimal shields. If those ships are hostile, they're hostile, Melanthayar said quietly. The younger Skarnak had gone very still, their eyes fixed on the display. The Corvallis don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They find you, they kill you, they take what you have. That's their entire culture. Then, we run, Paolo suggested. We have evacuation pods. We can scatter, hide in the debris field near the Red Dwarf. They'll hunt you down, DragonThe said. The Corvallis are patient. They'll search every asteroid, every piece of debris. And even if you escape them, you'll be stranded with limited life support in a hostile environment. So we're just supposed to sit here and wait to die. Dimitri's voice cracked slightly. He was the youngest of the crew, barely into his 20s. There has to be something we can do. Maya's mind was racing. 3 massive warships against a defenseless research station. An alien species that apparently specialized in destruction. A damaged friendly ship that couldn't even move. The smart thing would be to evacuate, scatter, hope the Corvallis were more interested in the Skarnak than random humans. But Maya had never been particularly good at doing the smart thing. She'd become an astrophysicist despite her parents' insistence on medical school. She'd volunteered for a 3-year isolation mission when everyone told her she'd go crazy. She'd helped an alien when the rational choice was to turn them away. Your ship, Maya said suddenly, turning to DragonThe. It's damaged but not destroyed. What systems are still functional? Very few. Life support, basic sensors, some structural integrity. The weapons are offline, the shields are gone, and the drives are depleted. But the hull is intact. The basic structure, mostly. What? Maya turned to the engineers. Could we use his ship as a shield? Position it between us and the approaching vessels? It's big enough and armored enough to absorb weapons fire, at least for a while. Paolo's eyes widened. That's actually not a terrible idea. We need to move it, but the station's tractor beams should be able to handle the positioning. It won't stop them for long, but it might buy us time. Time for what? Rodriguez asked. Maya took a deep breath, hardly believing what she was about to suggest. Time to fix the quantum drive, or at least fix it enough for one jump. That's impossible, Dimitri protested. We don't have the fuel, we don't have the materials, we don't even understand the technology. Then, we learn fast, Maya said stubbornly. We're researchers. Figuring out impossible things is literally our job description. DragonThe was staring at Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. You would risk your lives trying to repair my ship? To save two aliens you barely know? You're not two aliens, Maya replied. You're DragonThe and DragonThe are. You're people who needed help, and we helped. And now you need help again, so we help again. That's what people do. Most people don't, DragonThe said softly. Most people would have turned us away, or handed us over to save themselves. Why are humans different? Maya considered the question. I don't think we are necessarily, but maybe being isolated for 15,000 years, thinking we were alone, made us value connection more. When you spend millennia believing you're the only intelligence in the universe, you don't waste the opportunity to help when you finally find someone else out there. Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical display. Finally, he nodded. All right, we try. It's a long shot, but it's better than sitting here waiting for death. Hello, Dimitri, you're on ship repair. Take whatever you need from the station. Yuki, help them adapt our technology to Skarnock specifications. Dr. Chun, you're on astrophysics. Figure out if there's anything in this system we can use as fuel or raw materials. And me? DragonThe asked. You're going to teach us everything you know about your ship systems. Fast. We have less than an hour before those ships arrive, and I want to give them a surprise they're not expecting. As the crew scattered to their tasks, Maya caught DragonThe's eye. The massive dragon looked at her with something that might have been wonder. You're very strange, Dr. Maya Chun, he said quietly. I've been told that before, Maya replied with a small smile. Usually right before things get interesting. Then, I suspect, DragonThe said, his amber eyes gleaming with something that might have been hope. Things are about to get very interesting indeed. 43 minutes until the Corvallis arrived, and Maya was elbow-deep in DragonThe's ship, trying to understand technology that made her degrees feel like kindergarten certificates. The quantum drive chamber was a nightmare of crystalline structures and energy conduits that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. Every time she thought she understood one component, it would shift and reveal 3 more layers of complexity. This is impossible, she muttered, scanning the drive core for the 4th time. The quantum flux patterns aren't following any mathematical model I know. They're almost organic. They are organic, DragonThe said from behind her. He'd had to squeeze into the drive chamber, his massive frame barely fitting in the access tunnel. The quantum crystals are grown, not manufactured. They're partially alive, in a sense. They respond to intent as much as input. Intent? You're telling me your faster-than-light drive works on feelings. Not feelings. Will. Directed consciousness. Why do you think most species require neural implants to pilot FTL vessels? The ship needs to understand where you want to go, not just calculate coordinates. Maya sat back on her heels, processing this. So, when humans developed FTL, we did it completely differently. We brute-forced the physics, pure mathematics, and engineering with no consciousness interface at all, which is considered theoretically impossible by every major scientific institution in the galaxy, DragonThe pointed out. Human FTL should not work, but apparently it does. Your species has a talent for accomplishing impossible things through sheer, stubborn refusal to accept limitations. Is that a compliment? I haven't decided yet. Maya turned back to the drive core, looking at it with new understanding. Okay, so if the crystals respond to intent and they're damaged, maybe we can work around the consciousness interface. Use direct input instead. It'll be crude, but if we can program specific coordinates. The crystals are cracked. DragonThe interrupted gently. See those fracture lines? They're growing. Even if we could program the jump, the crystals would shatter mid-transition. We'd be trapped in quantum space indefinitely. So we stabilized them first. Maya was already pulling up chemical analyses on her tablet, cross-referencing with the station's fabrication capabilities. The fractures are spreading because of energy feedback, right? So we need something to absorb excess energy, redistribute it. Like a heat sink, but for quantum fluctuations. We use dark matter matrices for that, which you don't have. No, but we have something potentially better. Maya's fingers flew across her tablet. The station's ice shield. We use it for radiation protection, but the molecular structure is almost perfect for quantum absorption. If we could fabricate it into a lattice structure, integrate it with the crystal matrix. DragonThe leaned closer, studying her calculations. His breath was warm against her shoulder, smelling faintly of something metallic. That might actually work, but the fabrication would take hours. We have minutes. Then we improvise. Paolo. Maya shouted into her comm. I need you to strip every ice panel from the station's outer hull and get them to Bay 3. Don't worry about radiation exposure. We're probably going to die anyway. That's the spirit. Paolo's voice came back, only slightly sarcastic. I'll get right on our doom preparation. Maya squeezed past DragonThe in the narrow access tunnel, trying to ignore how aware she was of his presence. He was warm, warmer than humans, and there was a subtle vibration to his body, like a constant low-frequency hum. It should have been alien and off-putting. Instead, it was oddly comforting. Outside the ship, the station was organized chaos. Rodriguez had everyone working double time on multiple impossible tasks simultaneously. Dmitri was attempting to create quantum fuel from fusion reactor byproducts, a process that Yuki was helping with despite having no background in physics. Melanthair, still recovering but refusing to be sidelined, was working on rewiring the ship's power systems to accept human energy inputs. Status report. Rodriguez barked as Maya emerged from the access tunnel. The drive might be salvageable, but we need time. How long until the core Valix arrive? 31 minutes. And they're hailing us. Maya's stomach dropped. What do? We answer. Maybe we can buy some time. Rodriguez moved to the communication station. Put them through. The voice that came through the speakers was like grinding metal mixed with static. The translation software struggled with it, spitting out fragmented words. Human, station, surrender. Skarnak, aboard, deliver, or destroyed. This is Commander Rodriguez of Research Station Kepler. We are a civilian scientific facility. We have no Skarnak aboard. You must be mistaken. The response was immediate and chilling. Quantum signature detected tracked. Here, Lidai, choose. The transmission cut off. Well, Rodriguez said into the silence. I think diplomacy is off the table. We need more time, Maya said desperately. Can we convince them we're transmitting the Skarnak to them? Make them think we're cooperating while we finish repairs. They'll want visual confirmation. And even if we fake something, it'll buy us minutes at most. Rodriguez's expression was grim. We need a miracle. That's when Melanthair spoke up. Or distraction. Veter, remember the Valdris Gambit? DragonThe's eyes widened. That's insane. And it nearly killed us last time. What's the Valdris Gambit? Maya asked. Askanov combat maneuver, Melinta explained. When you're outgunned and outnumbered, you don't run. You charge. Full speed, directly at the enemy. Most species assume it's a suicide run and waste time analyzing your intent. By the time they realize you're serious, you're too close for their primary weapons to track you effectively. And when we used it, DragonThe continued, we had a fully functional ship with shields and weapons. Now we have a damaged wreck that can barely hold atmosphere. But they don't know that, Maya said slowly, an idea forming. From their perspective, they tracked a Skarnak warship here. For all they know, you've been repairing and preparing for their arrival. You want to bluff, Rodriguez said. Make them think we're ready for a fight. More than bluff. We make it real. Maya was already running calculations. The station's tractor beams can give the ship momentum. We point at the core Valix, accelerate it to ramming speed, and at the last second we jump. If the quantum drive works, even for a microsecond, we'll be gone before they can fire. And if the drive fails? Yuki asked quietly. Then, a very large ship crashes into their fleet at relativistic speeds. Either way, it's a distraction. DragonThe was staring at Maya with an expression that mixed horror and admiration. You're seriously suggesting we use my ship as a missile? I'm suggesting we use your ship as a very expensive magic trick. The missile part is just insurance. Maya met his gaze steadily. Unless you have a better idea? I really don't. which disturbs me greatly. The next 25 minutes were the most intense of Maya's life. Paolo and Dimitri worked frantically to install the improvised ice lattice into the quantum drive, essentially rebuilding the crystal matrix on the fly with materials that were never meant for this purpose. Maya helped where she could, but mostly she tried to stay out of the way while monitoring the Korvalik's approach. The hostile ships were massive, their hulls black and angular in a way that suggested weapons platforms more than exploration vessels. As they drew closer, Maya could make out details that made her skin crawl. There were what looked like trophies welded to the hull. Pieces of other ships. A grim reminder of the Korvalik's preferred method of warfare. Drive is installed, Paolo reported. I have no idea if it'll work, but it's installed. Fuel situation? Rodriguez asked. We managed to synthesize about 15% of what DragonThe says is a full tank, Dimitri replied. It might be enough for one jump. Might not. The calculations are beyond anything we can verify. Then we test it right now. Maya, DragonThe, get to the bridge. Everyone else, evacuate to the life pods. If this doesn't work, at least some of us might survive to tell Earth what happened here. I'm not leaving, Yuki said firmly. Several others nodded agreement. Rodriguez looked like he wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. Phoenix, everyone to their stations. Let's see if we can't give these Korvalik's something to remember humanity by. Maya found herself on DragonThe's ship bridge, strapped into a crash seat that had been hastily modified for human proportions. The controls around her were incomprehensible symbols and interfaces designed for a completely different species. DragonThe sat in the pilot's position, his large hands moving across controls with practiced ease despite the obvious damage throughout the chamber. The tractor beams are locked on. Rodriguez's voice came through the comm. We're going to push you toward the Korvalik's fleet. Once you reach 0.3 light speed, you'll be on your own. The beams can't maintain that kind of acceleration. Understood, DragonThe replied. Through the view screen, Maya could see the 3 Korvalik ships growing larger. They'd stopped their approach, apparently content to wait for the humans to hand over their prizes. They had no idea what was coming. Melanthar, you should not be here, DragonThe said suddenly. Maya turned and saw the younger Skarnak had entered the bridge, moving carefully but with determination. You're my clutch sibling. Where else would I be? Melanthar settled into the co-pilot's seat, their hands finding controls with the muscle memory of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. Besides, you'll need help managing the quantum calculations. The drive is damaged. It'll take both of us to keep it stable during transition. You're still recovering, and you're still annoying. Start the acceleration. Maya watched the 2 dragons work together, their movements synchronized in a way that spoke of years of partnership. It should have been terrifying being on a damaged alien ship, about to charge at hostile warships, with her life dependent on technology she didn't understand. Instead, Maya felt oddly calm. Maybe this was what people felt like right before they did something monumentally stupid, or monumentally brave. She'd never been entirely clear on the difference. The ship shuddered as the station's tractor beams engaged. Slowly at first, then, with increasing speed, they began moving toward the Korvalik's fleet. Maya watched the velocity indicator climb, numbers that made no sense to her, but apparently meant something to DragonThe. They're targeting us, Melanthar reported. Weapons systems charging. Let them, DragonThe said calmly. The longer they wait to fire, the harder we are to hit. And the closer we get. Through the view screen, Maya could see the Korvalik's ships beginning to move, their formations shifting from casual waiting to active combat positions. They'd realized this wasn't a surrender. This was an attack. 0.3 light speed, Rodriguez reported. Releasing tractor beams. You're on your own. Good luck. Thank you, Commander, DragonThe replied. For everything. Melanthar, begin quantum calculations. Maya, there's an emergency harness above your seat. I suggest you use it. Maya barely got the harness locked before the ship lurched. The Korvalik's had opened fire. Weapons fire streaked past the view screen, brilliant flares of energy that would have vaporized the station in seconds. But DragonThe was moving the ship in impossible ways. dodging with a grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. Quantum drive powering up, Melanthayar reported. Their voice was strained. Crystals are holding. Barely. How close do we need to be? Maya asked, trying not to sound as terrified as she felt. Close enough that they can't avoid us if the jump fails. Close enough that our debris field will damage their ships. Drakthor's hands moved across the controls in complex patterns. Close enough to see the fear in their eyes, if they had eyes. The Korvalik's fleet loomed in the view screen, so close now that Maya could make out individual weapon ports. Energy was building around the ships, preparing for a combined strike that would obliterate Drakthor's vessel entirely. Jump in 3 seconds, Melanthayar said. 2, 1, jump. The universe twisted. Maya felt her stomach turn inside out as reality bent around them. The view screen showed impossible colors, space folding in ways that human eyes weren't meant to perceive. She heard Drakthor and Melanthayar both crying out in their own language, words that the translator couldn't handle. Then, with a sensation like snapping back to reality after a dream, they were somewhere else. The view screen showed unfamiliar stars. The Korvaliks were gone. So was the research station. We did it, Maya breathed. We actually did it. Most of us did it, Drakthor corrected. He was manipulating controls, his expression concerned. The quantum transition was messy. We left pieces behind. The ship is barely holding together. But we're alive, Melanthayar said. Then, more quietly, the humans. The station. Did we abandon them? Maya's elation vanished, replaced by crushing guilt. In her excitement about escaping, she'd forgotten. Rodriguez, Yuki, Paolo, Dmitri, the others. They were still back there, facing 3 Korvalik's warships alone. We have to go back, she said urgently. With what fuel? Drakthor asked gently. The jump depleted our reserves entirely. We're drifting. It'll take days to regenerate enough power for basic systems, weeks for another jump. I'm sorry, Maya. Your friends, they saved us. But we cannot save them. Maya sat in the damaged bridge, staring at the unfamiliar stars through the view screen, trying to process the fact that everyone she'd worked with for 3 years was probably dead. Or worse. She didn't know much about the Korvaliks, but from what little Drakthor had said, death might be the merciful option. I should have stayed, she said quietly. I should have been with them. Then, you would be dead or captured as well, Melanthayar pointed out, though not unkindly. Your sacrifice would have changed nothing except to add another name to the casualty list. Melanthayar is correct, Drakthor added. He'd left his pilot's seat, and was now sitting on the floor near Maya, his massive frame somehow managing to look protective rather than threatening. Your commander made the choice to give us time to escape. Refusing that gift by dying pointlessly would insult their sacrifice. It doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like cowardice. Survival is never cowardice, Drakthor said firmly, especially when it gives you the chance to ensure the sacrifice meant something. You're alive, Maya. You can warn your people. You can tell them about the Korvaliks, about the galactic civilization that's been watching humanity from the shadows. That knowledge might save millions of lives. Maya wanted to argue, but she couldn't find the words. She was exhausted, emotionally and physically drained. The adrenaline that had carried her through the escape was fading, leaving behind a hollow ache. How long until we can get a message out? She asked, trying to focus on something practical. Earth needs to know what happened. The communication systems are damaged, Melanthayar reported from the co-pilot station. But I think I can jury-rig something. It won't be fast, and it won't be secure, but we should be able to send a basic distress signal within a few hours. Make it a priority, and include everything. The Korvaliks, the Conclave, the quarantine, all of it. Humanity needs to know what we're dealing with. As Melanthayar began working on communications, Maya found herself unable to sit still. She wandered the damaged ship, taking in the scope of the destruction. Entire corridors were exposed to space, sealed only by emergency force fields. The crew quarters where Drakthor's companions had lived were shattered, personal effects floating in zero gravity like ghosts of the dead. She found DragonThe in what appeared to be a memorial chamber. The walls were covered in symbols that glowed with a faint bioluminescence. DragonThe was standing before them, his head bowed, his claws tracing patterns in the air. "Remembering your crew?" Maya asked softly, speaking their names to the void. "It es a scanach tradition." The dead deserve to be remembered, to have their deeds recorded. He glanced at Maya. "I should include your friends as well, though I don't know all their names." "Commander Rodriguez," Maya said, stepping into the chamber. "Dr. Yuki Tanaka, engineers Paulo Santos and Dmitry Volkov, Dr. Marcus Webb." She paused, her voice catching. They were good people. They deserved better than this. DragonThe's large hand came to rest gently on her shoulder. The gesture was meant to be comforting, and despite the alienness of it, despite the claws that could tear through steel, it was. "Tell me about them," DragonThe said. "In Skarnak culture, we believe the dead live on through stories. Help me understand who they were." So Maya talked. She told stories about Rodriguez's terrible jokes during staff meetings, about Yuki's obsession with collecting soil samples from every celestial body they passed, about Paulo's habit of singing opera while he worked, and Dimitri's collection of terrible space movies from the 20th century. She talked until her voice grew hoarse, and DragonThe listened to every word, occasionally asking questions, helping her remember details she'd forgotten. By the time she finished, the symbols on the memorial wall had changed. New glowing patterns had appeared, incorporating the human names into the Skarnak remembrance. "Thank you," Maya said, wiping her eyes, "for listening, for caring about people you never even met. They saved my clutch sibling. They saved me. How could I not care?" DragonThe's amber eyes were gentle. "Besides, I think I would have liked them. Anyone who could produce someone like you must have been remarkable." Maya felt her face flush. "I'm not remarkable. I'm just a nerdy astrophysicist who's good at math and terrible at social situations. You're someone who helped an injured alien without hesitation, who risked your life to save strangers, who improvised an impossible repair on technology you'd never seen before. That sounds fairly remarkable to me." Before Maya could respond, Melanthear's voice came through the ship's communication system. "Veter, Maya, you need to see this." Now, they hurried to the bridge. Melanthear was staring at a screen filled with data that Maya couldn't interpret, but the younger Skarnaka's expression was one of shock. "What's wrong?" DragonThe demanded. "Nothing's wrong. That's the problem." Melanthear transferred the data to the main view screen. "I was scanning for any ships in the area, try to figure out where we ended up, and I found a research station." Maya's heart leaped. "They're alive? How?" "See for yourself." The view screen showed a distant image of Research Station Kepler, floating peacefully in space. But it wasn't alone. Surrounding it were the 3 Corvallis warships, but something was different. The aggressive posturing was gone. They were maintaining a respectful distance, almost like, "Are they protecting it?" Maya asked in disbelief. "I don't understand," DragonThe said, leaning closer to the screen. "The Corvallis don't protect. They destroy." "Wait, there's a transmission," Melanthear said, fingers flying across controls. "It's on a human frequency. From a station." Commander Rodriguez's voice filled the bridge, and Maya nearly collapsed with relief at hearing it. "Repeating broadcast to any ships in range. This is Research Station Kepler. We have established a temporary alliance with representatives of the Corvallis Collective. Repeat, alliance established. Any human vessels approaching should be aware that we are currently in negotiations for formal diplomatic relations. Dr. Chun, if you're receiving this, please respond. We have a situation here that requires your expertise." "That's impossible," DragonThe said flatly. "The Corvallis don't negotiate. They don't ally. They raid and destroy. That's all they've done for centuries." "Maybe they do when they realize they've bitten off more than they can chew," Maya said slowly. An idea was forming, one so audacious it made their earlier escape plan look conservative. "Melanthear, can we send a response?" "Yes, but it'll take several minutes to reach them. We're pretty far out." "Do it. Tell them we're alive and we're coming back." "Maya." DragonThe said carefully. We can't go back. We have no fuel, limited life support, and a ship that's barely holding together. Even if we could reach the station, we'd be putting ourselves right back in danger. Or, Maya countered, we'd be proving to the core Valaks that the humans they're negotiating with have serious allies. Allies who command warships and can survive impossible odds. Think about it, DragonThe. They tracked you to the station expecting easy prey. Instead, they found humans willing to fight back, and a Skarnak ship that charged 3 warships and escaped. That's not the profile of victims. That's the profile of equals. DragonThe's expression shifted from doubt to understanding. You think we scared them? I think we surprised them. And I think when they realized the humans weren't going to just hand us over, they had to reassess. Maybe Rodriguez convinced them that humanity is worth talking to instead of raiding. Maybe they realized humans have something they want. Either way, we have an opportunity here. An opportunity to do what? Melanthaor asked. To change everything. The galactic quarantine. The assumption that humans are extinct or primitive. The core Valaks' reputation as unstoppable raiders. We flip it all. Maya was pacing now, her mind racing through possibilities. But we need leverage. And right now, our leverage is the fact that we escaped. If we just drift here, we're helpless. But if we return, we're choosing to come back. That's a power move. With what ship? DragonThe pointed at the damaged controls around them. We're dead in space. Then, we use the oldest trick in human history. We improvise. Maya turned to Melanthaor. You said the communication system is working. What else can we get functional with what we have? Over the next several hours, they performed what could only be described as engineering miracles. Using power cells from the life support system, they managed to get limited maneuvering thrusters online. Melanthaor figured out how to reroute sensor systems to make the ship look more operational than it was, a bit of electronic theater that would fool casual scans. Maya even managed to get one of the exterior lights working, which seemed trivial until DragonThe pointed out that dark ships read as abandoned or destroyed. It wasn't much. The ship could barely move at a crawl, and any serious scan would reveal the truth of their desperate situation. But it was enough to make a statement. We're here. We're functional. We're not afraid. The journey back took 3 days. 3 days of careful power management, of rationing life support, of taking turns sleeping in shifts to conserve oxygen. 3 days of not knowing if they were heading toward salvation or destruction. But they kept moving, and the station grew larger in their view screen. On the 3rd day, they received another transmission. This time, it wasn't Commander Rodriguez. The voice was harsh, filtered through a translation matrix, but understandable. Skarnak Feste. This is War Leader Crix of the Core Valaks 3rd Fleet. You demonstrate admirable persistence in returning. We would speak with you. And with the human called Chun, DragonThe and Melanthaor exchanged glances. A Core Valaks war leader wants to talk, Melanthaor said slowly. That's unprecedented. Should we respond? Maya asked. We have to. Not responding would be seen as weakness. DragonThe opened a channel. War Leader Crix. This is DragonThe of the Skarnak Pride. We hear you. What do you wish to discuss? The humans tell us you initiated the Valdres Gambit, that you charged our fleet with a damaged ship and crew of 4, one of whom is not even a warrior species. They tell us you escaped our weapons through skill and courage, not luck. There was a pause. We wish to understand this. The Core Valaks respect strength. You have shown strength. This changes the nature of our interaction. Maya grabbed the communication control before DragonThe could respond. This is Dr. Maya Chun. With respect, War Leader Crix, what happened wasn't just about strength. It was about people helping each other. Humans helped the Skarnak because it was the right thing to do. We fought because you threatened our friends. That's not just strength. That's compassion and loyalty. Another pause. When Crix spoke again, his tone was different. These concepts are alien to us. The Core Valaks do not have friends. We have clutches and we have enemies. But the humans suggest there is another way. They offer to teach us. In exchange, they ask that we teach them of the galaxy beyond their borders. A cultural exchange, Dractor said, sounding stunned. Rodriguez negotiated a cultural exchange with the Korvalix. The commander is very persuasive when he wants to be, Maya said with a slight smile. Then, to Crix, we accept your offer. We'll dock at the station and participate in these discussions. But, War Leader Crix, I need your word that violence against the station, against the humans, against us is off the table. You have it. The Korvalix honor their agreements once made. You will be safe. As they approached the station, Maya could see the Korvalix ships maintaining their careful distance. Rodriguez was already on the comm, his voice filled with relief and barely suppressed excitement. Dr. Chun, thank God. We weren't sure the message reached you. Where are you hurt? What's your situation? We're intact, Commander. Barely. But we're here. Maya found herself smiling despite everything. And I think we have a lot to talk about. That's an understatement. Maya, do you realize what we've done here? We've made first contact with 2 alien species simultaneously, survived a hostile encounter, and established diplomatic relations with a species that's been raiding the galaxy for centuries. Anthropology departments are going to be writing papers about this for decades. I'm more interested in making sure we all survive long enough to read those papers, Maya replied, bringing us in for docking. The docking procedure was complicated by their damaged ship, but with help from the station's tractor beams and some very creative piloting by Dractor, they managed. As the airlock sealed and Maya felt solid station floor beneath her feet again, she was greeted by the sight of her crew, alive and unharmed. Yuki practically tackled her in a hug. You absolute maniac. I thought you were dead. I thought you were dead. Maya hugged back, trying not to cry. What happened after we jumped? Well, Rodriguez said, stepping forward with a grin. The Korvalix were so busy trying to figure out where you'd gone that they didn't notice us launching every probe we had directly at their ships. When they finally did notice, I opened a channel and asked if they'd ever seen humans fight back before. Turns out they hadn't. Apparently, most species just surrender when faced with overwhelming force. But humans don't, Paolo added, looking far too pleased with himself. We explained that our entire history is full of people winning against impossible odds. Made it sound like picking a fight with humanity was going to be way more trouble than it was worth. And then Yuki started asking them questions, Dimitri said, laughing. Anthropological questions about their culture, their biology, their social structures. She basically turned a hostile standoff into an academic interview. I was curious. Yuki protested. They were right there. How often do you get to ask a raiding species about their cultural practices? Somehow, Rodriguez concluded, that turned into a negotiation. They're as curious about us as we are about them. And when they realized we had access to species and knowledge they don't, well, the war leader decided talking was more profitable than shooting. Over the next several hours, Maya learned the full story. The Korvalix were raiders because they'd been exiled from galactic civilization centuries ago for violating some treaty the humans didn't understand yet. They survived by taking what they needed from others, but it was a precarious existence. The offer of legitimate trade, of knowledge exchange, of a place in a wider community, that was something they hadn't expected, something they didn't know they wanted until it was offered. And humanity, isolated and unknown, represented a unique opportunity. A species not bound by existing treaties or alliances. A potential advocate for reintegrating the Korvalix into galactic civilization. It's all very preliminary, Rodriguez warned. We're talking about possibilities, not certainties. But, Maya, this could change everything for humanity. We're not just discovering we're not alone. We're inserting ourselves into galactic politics as major players right from start. And it started, Yuki added with a sly smile, because someone decided to help an injured alien instead of turning them away. Maya felt Dractor's presence behind her before she saw him. The dragon had to duck to fit through the station corridors, but he'd managed to join the gathering in the common area. Melanthayar was beside him, looking far healthier than they had any right to after everything. She did more than help, Dractor said. She saw people who needed assistance and didn't hesitate, even when it was dangerous. even when it made no logical sense. That's not just kindness. That's... He paused, searching for the right word. Humanity, Maya supplied quietly. For better or worse, that's humanity. We're terrible at leaving well enough alone. Someone needs help, we help. Someone threatens our friends, we fight. We're not always smart about it, and we make a lot of mistakes, but we try. The galaxy has been looking for a species to bridge the divide between the Conclave's rigid order and the chaos outside their borders, Melanthear observed. Perhaps they've been looking in the wrong places. Perhaps they needed a species that was isolated long enough to develop differently, to not carry the old grudges and old assumptions. Or perhaps, Crix's voice came from the doorway, they needed a species crazy enough to charge warships in a broken vessel and call a strategy. The Corvallis war leader had to bend nearly double to fit through the door. He was smaller than the Skarnak, but no less impressive. His scales were deep red, almost black, and his eyes were a startling silver. He moved with a predator's grace, and despite his words about peace, Maya's hindbrain screamed at her to run. She forced herself to stand still, to meet his eyes, to extend her hand in a universal human gesture of greeting. War Leader Crix, thank you for giving us a chance. Crix stared at her hand, then at her face, then back at her hand. Finally, cautiously, he reached out and took it. His grip was surprisingly gentle for something with claws. You are very small, he observed. But the commander says you organized the strategy that let the Skarnak escape. How can something so small be so dangerous? I'm not dangerous, Maya said. I'm just stubborn. There's a difference. I do not think there is, Crix replied. But he was smiling, revealing teeth that would have given a shark nightmares. The Corvallis are learning this about humans. You do not fight like warriors. You fight like cornered prey that refuses to die. It is both frustrating and admirable. As the day wore on, the station became a hub of unprecedented activity. Representatives from 3 species, recently enemies, now talking about possibilities. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, the sharing of technology and knowledge. It was chaotic and exciting and terrifying all at once. Late that night, Maya found herself back in her quarters for the first time in days. She should have been exhausted. Instead, she couldn't sleep. Too much had happened. Too much had changed. A soft knock on her door announced DragonThe's presence. He was getting better at navigating the human-sized station, though he still had to crouch in the corridors. Couldn't sleep either? Maya asked, gesturing him inside. Too many thoughts. Too many possibilities. DragonThe settled on the floor, his back against the wall. In the small space, he seemed less imposing somehow. Just a person, despite the scales and wings. I wanted to thank you, properly, for saving Melanthear, for not giving up on me, even when it would have been easier. You don't need to thank me. You would have done the same. Would I? DragonThe's expression was thoughtful. I like to think so, but I'm not certain. The Skarnak are taught to be practical, to make hard choices for the good of the clutch. Helping a stranger when you have limited resources, risking your life for someone who can't repay you, those aren't practical choices. Maybe not, but they're the right ones. Maya sat down next to him, feeling oddly comfortable despite the strangeness of the situation. Besides, you did repay us. You helped Rodriguez negotiate with the Corvallis. You taught us about the galaxy. You're still here, even though your ship could probably limp away by now if you really wanted to leave. Where would I go? My pride will want a full report, but they can wait a few more days. This, he gestured vaguely at the station around them. This is important, historic, and I find I don't want to miss it. Plus, Melanthear is still recovering, and you wouldn't leave them, Maya pointed out with a small smile. There is that, DragonThe admitted. Then, more softly, and perhaps I don't want to leave you either. You're fascinating, Dr. Maya-chun. Strange and brilliant and utterly unpredictable. I've never met anyone quite like you. Maya felt her face heat up. I'm really not that special. I'm just a nerd who likes space. You charged a warship in a broken vessel. You improvised repairs on technology you'd never seen. You negotiated with species that terrify most of the galaxy. And you did it all while somehow remaining kind and thoughtful and cute. Maya's brain short-circuited. Goo. DragonThe's expression shifted to something that might have been embarrassment. Is that not the correct word? Melanthayar helped me understand human descriptive terms. Small, pleasant, endearing. Goo. Yes, that's accurate. I'm just not used to being called cute by a dragon. Is it inappropriate? I apologize if no. It's fine. It's actually kind of sweet. Maya found herself laughing. Here we are, representatives of two species that didn't know the other existed a week ago, and we're having an awkward conversation about compliments. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous, DragonThe agreed. But he was smiling, that strange dragon smile that Maya had learned to recognize. But also nice. Human friendship is different from Skarnak clutch bonds. More flexible, more individual. I think I like it. Friend, Maya repeated, testing the word. Yeah, I think I like that too. They sat in companionable silence for a while. Two beings from different worlds finding common ground in the vast emptiness of space. Outside Maya's window, the stars shone with new meaning. Each one potentially harboring life, civilizations, stories. Humanity's isolation was ending, and while that brought new dangers, it also brought infinite possibilities. So, Maya said eventually, what happens now? I mean, really, after the diplomacy and the knowledge exchange and all the official stuff. What happens to us? Us. DragonThe's amber eyes caught the light from the window. I suppose that depends on what we want to happen. The galaxy is large, Maya, but perhaps not so large that a Skarnak pilot and a human astrophysicist couldn't find reasons to cross paths occasionally. Occasionally, Maya echoed, smiling. I think I'd like that. And maybe eventually I could visit your homeworld, learn more about Skarnak culture, introduce you to human dental care practices. Dental care. It's important. Your teeth are magnificent, but I bet we could show you some techniques that would make them even better. DragonThe laughed, that wonderful thunder purr sound that vibrated through the small room. Only you would meet an alien dragon, and think first about teeth hygiene. It's who I am, Maya said, not apologetically. Nerdy astrophysicist with too many opinions about oral care and a tendency to help injured aliens instead of running away screaming. Take it or leave it. I think, DragonThe said gently, his large hand coming to rest on her shoulder in that now familiar gesture of comfort and connection. I will take it, gladly. And so, in a small research station orbiting a dying star, with three species learning to become allies instead of enemies, Maya Chun and DragonThe began something that had no precedent in either of their cultures. A friendship built on mutual respect, shared trauma, and the kind of bond that forms when you face impossible odds together and somehow come out the other side. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity was back, and they were nothing like the primitive species the record suggested. They were stubborn, innovative, compassionate, and just crazy enough to make the impossible work. And they were forming alliances with species that the established powers had written off as enemies. The Conclave wasn't going to know what hit them. But for now, in this moment, Maya was content to sit with her friend and watch the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, an entire galaxy was waiting to be explored. And for the first time in 15,000 years, humanity wouldn't be exploring it alone.